Welcome to our podcast, It's About Payroll. We're your hosts, Brian Escobar and Walter William Duncan III. Whether you're new to the payroll game or a seasoned veteran, we have something for you. All right, welcome back, folks, for another episode. We are in for Deductions Part 2 of a 4-part series, right, Walt?
Yeah, a 4-part series on deductions. It's like a mini series on deductions.
In a mini series, yeah.
Yeah.
a season within a season.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to break deduction down for you guys because, again, we're doing this part from the point of view, the consumer being everybody that gets a paycheck. And we really want to break it down into digestible pieces, digestible parts, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Before we roll in, how you doing, Walt? What's going on?
Man, I'm grateful. I'm blessed. I'm excited to be here, man. It's another day, another opportunity to grow and to pass along knowledge, man. I'm just grateful to be here right now.
We're talking about pre-tax deductions today. And again, Walt, this is part 2 of a 4-part series. Which are we covering today?
Today we're going to be covering the pre-tax deductions. We covered involuntary deductions first in part 1. And so this one is going to be pre-tax deductions.
Got it.
Remember, we tried to structure it as it would hit on an employee's or consumer's pay check. That's why we structured
kind of how they would see.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. All right. And what's pre-tax deductions for our consumers?
Okay, so I looked up the definition of a pre-tax deduction. So a pre-tax deduction is a deduction that is taken away from an employee's gross pay prior to taxes being withheld.
Right.
These deductions reduce the employee's taxable income, meaning they will owe less income tax. They may also owe less on other taxes like FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare. And the pre-tax deductions may also lower employer-paid taxes like federal unemployment tax, FUTA, SUI, to get into those terms and stuff like that. So that's basically what the pre-tax deductions are. Those deductions that are eligible to be deducted prior to taxes being taken.
Okay, so that was, thank you for that. That was a technical definition for it. And example, and this is what I always tell folks, because even when I'm telling friends and family, they don't realize pre-tax and the impact and the benefit it has on your paycheck. And the real easy way to explain it is if you made $1,000 on your paycheck, again, just for ease, I'm not saying anything, which is easy math. You got $1,000 check and you contribute, I don't know, $200 to medical every time you get that check, right? You're going to get taxed you're going to pay taxes on that calculation for the percentage of taxes to be held is going to be on $800, not the $1,000 that you gross. So that is the pre-tax benefit. It reduces your wages.
Your taxable income.
Yes. So for us that get a check, again, have medical and these pre-tax benefits come out of your check is a benefit to you, right? The IRS allows for it to reduce your wages, your earnings. And a really big call out, what we deal with in payroll sometimes come year end when folks get their W-2s, they'll say, I make $70,000 a year and my W is 65.
Yeah.
That's because you have some pre-tax deductions, and your box 1 on your W-2 is your taxable wages. Okay, and that tells the government what you should be taxed on, and that is the benefit of having these pre-tax deductions. It reduces your taxable wages, and that's the easiest way to call it out. Some of you may get in your W-2 and you're like, oh, I make more than that, and that happens to us every year. We send out W-2s and a bunch of help desk tickets come in talking about my wages are wrong. And the first thing I do is just go look at their benefits and I see, yep, they pre-tax, they have benefits. So they're not realizing that their benefits is reducing that wages. And mind you, some of these W-2s have the gross amount there. So it's like box one versus your gross amount are two
Yep.
different things. I even have to, there's some professionals that don't realize
Yep.
that, I've had auditors in the past to say, oh, box one is not tying out to your payroll history. And I'm like, no,
Hmm.
it's never going to tie out because most people have, especially the whole, it's definitely not going to tie out as a group because somebody's got pre-tax benefits.
Yep.
So I know I go off like we always do. We go off into the payroll side of it, but this is about your paycheck and
Hmm.
understanding that these pre-tax deductions lower your taxable wages. So what else should we know about pre-tax deductions?
So I guess we can get into the different types of pre-tax deductions there could be.
Without going in too deep, yeah, we
Yeah,
could,
I'm
yeah.
not saying we're going to take a deep dive into each
Okay,
one, but I'm just going to name a few, right? So
yeah,
you have
absolutely.
retirement funds, which is your 401
401k, yep,
401k,
yep.
your 403b stuff, right there. And you have there's some states that have parking permits that you can have as a pre-tax
Oh,
deduction.
parking, transit. New York has
Yeah.
that, has parking, it has transit. Yep, your
Yep.
commuter expense. That's what it is. It's a commuter benefit.
All pretty much a lot of your medical benefits,
Yep,
like long-term, short-term disability, dental, are pre-tax. There are some that could be post-tax.
absolutely.
So you
And
just want
yep.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, and even when you do insurance, there's a pre-tax max, I think, for the benefit, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's a post-tax version you can take out. Same thing
Mm-hmm.
with the 401k products. You have Roth pre-tax and a Roth after tax.
Yep.
I'm sorry, is after is the 401k. But
Yep.
these things, all to sum it up, and that's why I didn't want to go too deep. We cover the buckets, but to get a comprehensive list, you can go to IRS
Yep.
website, and they're called Cafe 125, Cafeteria 125 plan
Yep.
is what is listed on as the IRS. But this is stuff that we need to know as consumers, educate ourselves and understand what those benefits are. Because think about it, some companies, it's really expensive to pay for benefits. I've seen deductions, and I'm sure you have also, what, $700 out of your check for healthcare. And some people, it's like half their check, and they have to do it because they need help. They have kids, and that's
Yep.
usually like a
Yep.
family plan, and that's more on the higher end, expensive. There are some companies where it's only $100 out of your check. There's
Mm.
still some companies that cover it 100%,
Yeah.
and those are rare. Those are like unicorns nowadays, where you get for real, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so expensive, man. And so it's great to have some type of offset and it be affordable. But think
Hmm.
about it. If it's $700 coming out of your check on the high end, and
Hmm.
that's every paycheck, and you get paid at least twice a month,
Yep.
you're talking upwards of $12,000 medical expenses and pre-tax expenses. And pre-tax,
Yep.
I'm saying expenses because that's what you're going to spend. It is an expense to us, right? So
Yeah.
that's a hefty savings, and I guess that's why IRS did it. Is like, all right, if companies are going to charge you so much, we at least going to give you this break, and we'll take that off the
Yep.
top. Well, if you dollars and you paid $15,000 in medical for that year, you're only going to get taxed on $85,000.
Yep.
So that is a big. It could mean a different of a tier of a bracket for your like
Yeah.
tax brackets.
Absolutely. That's a
And
good
a
way
lot
to
of
put
people do
it. Hmm.
that, right? Yeah, a lot of people do
Hmm.
that when they're paying attention to it. Some of us don't make enough to pay attention to it, but when you're paying attention to those different tax brackets, keep those things in mind. These pre-tax
Yeah.
benefits can help you stay out of a certain tax bracket.
Yep.
There was a call out for 401k, something I learned in my payroll when I was doing in-house payroll. And in-house payroll, not to get too much on the payroll side of it, but in-house payroll means that you really do a lot of it yourself and you
Hmm.
don't depend on a vendor. So when I was doing that, we had to check calculations for taxes, and I learned that 401k is pre-tax only for federal. It's not
Hmm.
pre-tax. It does
Yeah.
not lower your Social Security and Medicare wages
Yeah.
because it's like a double dip. It's Social Security and Medicare is for your retirement, and 401k is for your retirement. So like
Yep.
the IRS is saying you're gonna do yourself a disservice by lowering the amount of money you put into to Medicare and Social Security for your 401k So that's the logic, and I think that's what I'm assuming. I don't know if I've ever read that, but I think that's what it is. Like you can't double dip. They don't let you double dip on it. So keep that in mind when, if you're checking your paycheck and you're doing a calculation, like Brian and Walter said that it lowers my taxes, Social Security, except for 401k, right? 401k is only for, it only lowers the federal liability, not Social Security and not the Medicare, unfortunately. But the other ones do.
But
So keep
like you
that in
said,
mind.
the IRS will speak to that
Oh,
as
yes.
well. A lot of the
Yes.
resources that are out there will
All of
tell
it.
you that information as
Yes.
well. But good, thank you for calling that out.
Yeah. I mean, that was late in my career. I didn't realize that. I was already doing payroll a long time before. Because,
Hmm.
and again, like I say, for the payroll professionals listening, you don't know payroll until you do in-house payroll. So if you really want to challenge yourself, try to do some case studies in that. I don't know. Try to expose yourself to an in-house payroll situation and get some understanding of that, because it's really where you learn how all these calculations work. And again, so in the last episode, there's even an order. It's a hierarchy of deductions in the order of how they come out of your check and how it's applied. Your federal and your FICA come out first before your medical, vision, dental. So if you don't make enough one check and you got $100 medical bills, but you only made 500 that day, that week, or whatever, that's not coming out of your check. It's gonna be federal first, and then whatever they can get left over.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then there's other rules there as well. In most states, deductions can't bring you past minimum wage.
Yeah.
So it's another thing to factor in, and most systems kind of won't let that happen either, really good ones. And then payroll folks are supposed to be conscious of that as well. And that's a big thing that I think consumers we don't know, because gosh, when people say it in front of me, oh, they took so much out of my check, I got zero. And I'm like, no, that's not legal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or I got
Mhm.
$15. That's not legal. You're supposed to get minimum wage. And that goes for garnishments, child support, stuff like that. I don't know. I'll take it back on the child support piece, because sometimes they're aggressive and sometimes it may not. There may be a situation there. For garnishments and things like that, all that other stuff, you can't get, they can't pay you less than minimum wage.
Absolutely. Yep.
So just keep that in mind. As a consumer, you have rights. We talk to our friends and family all the time about different pay issues, and I'm always like, hey, that's not legal. So if you're exaggerating, I get
Yeah.
it. If you're exaggerating, I get it. But if you're not exaggerating, you got to speak up for yourself and talk to your payroll people, talk to your bosses. There are plenty of rights for us, even in states where we don't have those governing bodies, particularly Florida, right? There's no governing body that kind of sticks up for us the way that California and New York does, very employee centric.
Hmm.
But there's still laws. It's governed at the federal level, and those are still good protections. So even in Florida, you have rights, right? Even in
Hmm.
those states where you're not collecting income tax and not paying for this governing body, there's still rights out there. So as consumers, let's keep in mind your paycheck, right? You're a W-2 employee, you have a lot of power. If you are a
Yes.
W-2 employee, you have a lot of rights,
Hmm.
especially in this climate, in this day and age where it's like retention is super important. Labor is tough in every industry. We're struggling to keep labor. Not to
Yep.
go too far off on a tangent, but just it all loops back into we need to know what's happening on our check.
Yeah.
We need to have that about how these calculations are going down, and be mindful of it, because overtime is enough. If you're an hourly employee, you're due overtime. That's a very sticky point.
Yeah.
And that's something you want to see on your check, and you want to see it calculated properly.
Yeah.
So, all right, what
Absolutely.
else? Any call outs?
No, I like the flow that you're in. And absolutely, that goes back to why we did this in the first place, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of inspiration from Gerard M.
Yep.
Hall,
Yep.
payroll guy, CPP.
Check them out.
Shout out to him. And also, we got some inspiration from our team over at Valor Payroll Solutions. They got some stuff going where they're sending stuff out about paycheck and payroll. So
Yeah.
they give us some inspiration as well. I definitely want to shout them out. But that's the reason why we did this, right? Is to empower people.
Yep.
I know it's cliche and corny, but knowledge is power. And so that's what this is about. It's about giving the consumer, everyone who gets a paycheck, that knowledge and information for them to be able to have have more awareness about how their pay works.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
I know I get paid.
Yep.
I don't know how I get paid. I
How
don't
do they?
know
Yeah.
the inner workings.
How do you go
You
from
know?
gross to net?
Yep.
How did they get to that net amount number? Did they know how much taxes to take out, right? And the federal and state is where there's a lot of room for play. Social
Hmm.
Security, not so much. We'll get. Well, we're going to talk about taxes in another one.
Oh yeah,
So
you jumping ahead.
I'm jumping ahead. Sorry. So
So yeah,
yes. So again, yes. Be empowered. Know what's going on in your check. And these
yeah.
pre-tax. And this is what pre-tax deductions are for. And a lot of folks don't take advantage of them at their job. You really
Hmm.
want them. If you can afford it, you want. Sometimes you can't not afford it, but if and because I get it too. I've been there
Hmm.
where it's like. "Ah, I can't do this.
Yeah.
You can't afford not to. Yeah, but I can't. I really can't do this. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I get it, but if you can, take advantage of those pre-tax deductions. They're very helpful in managing your tax liability at the end of the year. And again, if you're crossing brackets and growing into different income brackets, you definitely want to pay attention to pre-tax deductions and see how they can help you and how you can leverage that. Yeah.
Absolutely great points, great call outs on that.
Yep.
Just a couple of more points, and
Yeah.
maybe I have a couple of questions, right? So, if my pre-tax deductions are jacked up, I'm a consumer, an employee.
Uh-huh.
Who do I contact? Who do I go to? Who
It's
do I
a good
reach
one.
out to? You know,
Look,
yeah.
as a savvy consumer, I would tell you go be a savvy consumer. As a payroll professional, it would help us if you go first and just go look it up on the IRS. What's pre-tax? What's not? Try to ask good questions. Right. One of our biggest kind of pet peeves as a payroll person, and was like, they just call you. You guys just we call and we just say, hey, this is a pay problem. All right, but what do you mean? What's the pay problem? So just be armed. Try to, if you have a pre-tax deduction question, go ahead and look it up first on the IRS, read up, and then reach out to us and ask and hey, what's going on? It would be your payroll people to start the conversation because it could
Yeah,
be benefits.
which could be under payroll or could be under HR, could be
Exactly.
however it's structured. You never know.
Yep. I always say start with payroll because that's what
Hmm.
everybody does anyway. And that's why payroll is so important because it all ends with us and then it starts back with us when you have
Hmm.
questions and issues. When your pay is good, you're not even thinking about your payroll.
That's why it's called the pay stub. It's not called the pay and benefit stub. The
Exactly.
pay and benefits and employee
That's
demographic stub.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it
Yep.
should be. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. But yeah, when your pay is straight, you don't even care. You don't even know if
Hmm.
you ever always get paid. You don't even know who your payroll person is. You know what
Yep.
I mean? But when your paycheck is wrong, please believe you're gonna know who that payroll person is really
Oh,
quick.
indeed.
You're gonna learn real quick. So yeah, just yep,
Okay,
yep.
great.
Start with payroll is the
Start
answer.
with payroll.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question, because it ties it into our first episode on deductions, pre-tax deductions, they considered voluntary or involuntary deductions?
It depends.
Okay.
For the most part, it's voluntary,
Hmm.
but if you consider garnishment, then there are some involuntary ones there.
Okay. It could be pre-tax.
Oh, that's a
That was
good one.
that key.
Duh,
Yeah.
that was a
Mhm.
key. Okay, what was I gonna say? Oh, yes, because of the benefit piece. That's what I meant to. That's what I was going to.
Okay.
So there are some child support cases, garnishment orders
Mhm.
require the parents to provide medical benefits.
Uh-huh.
So in that case, the person who has to carry the medical benefits is getting like that byproduct of a benefit to themselves. And they're getting a pre-tax deduction there for whatever that's worth.
Hmm.
It's never nice to get these garnishment orders and to be forced to do things. But yeah, it depends. Those forced medical benefits
Hmm.
even though that it's involuntary, they're pre-tax deductions because it's the medical benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the only ones I could think of that can be involuntary.
Okay. That's a good call out though,
Yeah.
because I don't think a lot of people would realize that either. Even consumers, let alone payroll professionals. Those are great points, man. Do you have any more last comments? Do you have any more thoughts on this subject before we close this out?
No, no, I think that's it. Again, I'm loving how these are like little digestible pieces,
Hmm.
little nuggets. It's pre-tax deductions. We're able to kind of really exhaust this small subject and this paycheck down into pieces for you guys, and I'm loving it, man. No, I think that's it.
Yeah. Me too. I
All
think we're
right.
in a good spot. And
Cool.
next week we're gonna move on to episode 5, which is gonna talk about taxes.
Taxes, which is part 3 in the deduction piece. Yeah,
Yes.
got it. And what was the last one? Part
Number
4?
4 is going to be the deductions. I gotta look and see, man. It was pre-tax, post-tax deductions.
Post-tax deductions.
There you go.
Awesome. There we go.
Yeah.
All
I had a
right.
little brain fart for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, no, I know it. I just wanted, yeah, good to recap. All right,
Yep.
folks, man, thank you for joining us again. We hope you enjoyed the show as always, and we'll catch you next week.
See you next week, guys and gals. Thank you for listening to today's episode of our podcast. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. And we hope that the information that was shared with you will impact you as a payroll professional. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep going.